Gives me great pleasure to tell you that around 100 schools have joined us and it's time to start. So, जैसे कि मैं बता रही थी इसरो के किसी भी इवेंट में हम लॉन्च टाइम की बात करते हैं तो लॉन्च टाइम बिल्कुल हो चुका है लेडीज एंड जेंटलमैन बॉयज एंड गर्ल्स young and younger students gives me great pleasure that we have assembled for such a great reason and cause one single agenda that we are going to meet the part of team who is taking India to the moon to the sun and beyond. Really proud. What an honor. I will have to control my energy level because I am really happy and so are you. What an honor that we have a part of ISRO team live with us today. And we would like to focus on the figures that are massive. The number of schools and students that have been participating in Rangrez is 3 lakh children across 7 states and 300 schools. It's huge and big round of applause for all of you. Before I introduce our guest to you, let me tell you what you'll hear today will be etched in your hearts and your minds forever. You'll be mesmerized and you will remember everything that you hear today for your life. Post this, we will also have Q&A session, that is the question and answer session. We already have several questions from excited students from all across the country. But if you have any more questions when you hear the entire presentation, keep them coming. Just drop them in the comment section below and we will also try to incorporate your question. And the best news is here. The biggest huge surprise for the participants of Rangrez this season. Let me tell you, all the participants are winners, all the children. But the final 12 Rangrez via MyFM are going to get this golden opportunity. Let me tell you what the opportunity is. You will get to visit ISRO Bangalore. This is the wowest gift and opportunity that the students are going to receive. And as we all know, there are no fees involved. Now, without further ado, let me introduce the team ISRO to you. This is the team that is designing the future of India, science and space. Let me take this opportunity to name all the three. Dr. B.H.M. Darukesh, Associate Director and Chief Information Officer ISRO, Shri Shrikant M., Mission Director Chandrayaan 3 and Aditya L1. Dr. Venkat Raghavendra, he's Deputy Project Director Chandrayaan 3 Thermal Systems. And one little surprise is that we'll get to know a lot about Chandrayaan 3 and Aditya L1 too. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, your eyes, ears, and minds all parked here. Darukesh ji, the mic is all yours, and thank you so much for this opportunity already.
Thank you, Archana. Thanks to Vivek and my FM team. It has been a great pleasure. Numbers are really huge. ISRO appreciates the efforts from my FM and all the schools and the children. Well, let's get started. We know, I mean, there have been questions. The first question possibly would be, so how did we join ISRO so that students know how to they join ISRO? Possibly three of us joined after our qualification degree completion. We were interviewed and then we were selected. Today, if you want to join ISRO, possibly you had to write an exam followed by an interview. That's a selection procedure. To join ISRO now, you need to entry levels are ITI, diploma, say engineering, MTech, PhD, BSc, MSc. ISRO working basically on physical sciences, mathematical sciences. So these are the areas: physics, chemistry, maths, and allied engineering topics, or the ones that are preferred or that will give you an entry. So this is about entering into the ISRO. It's not just entering into the ISRO. If you would like to, say, any student would like to associate with Indian Space Program, there are four avenues. One is joining ISRO as an employee or joining any of the companies that are supporting ISRO. As you would have known, so Chandrayaan 3 itself received contribution from about 670 companies. So that's the second aspect. The third one is you can make a startup on your own so that you can harness the space technology much beyond the levels that has been possible till now. And the fourth one is as students or as academic researchers, you can collaborate with ISRO or the private companies so that you can contribute. So when we speak of these things, uh, basically, yes, space, as we know, uh, if we start climbing up and up, say, at around 10 to 12 kilometers, we see aeroplanes flying by the side of us. At around 15 to 25 kilometers, we can see Sonde balloons flying. And then up to say 40 to 60, 70 kilometers, we can see the meteorites burning and turning into ash. If you go beyond say 80 kilometer or 100 kilometers, there's nothing. So this nothing is called space. So space can give solution for problems that are existing on the earth, and space can be utilized for uh, something that has not been possible on ground. So for these two reasons, space is being used, and then the entire space is yours. You can make full use of it, and then only the limitation is our say imagination. Then the second part of it is the technology. We have rockets, we have satellites, but sometimes the technology gets limited. Why I'm telling this is, as you must be knowing, the universe started around 1370 crores years back, and then we came to know that the universe is expanding. It's expanding with acceleration. So what is the energy that is causing the acceleration? We have called it as dark energy, but we don't know anything about dark energy. We don't know anything about dark matter except that they exist, and they contribute about 69% of dark energy. 26% is contributed by dark matter. But then we have rocket satellites that go up to space, but then we don't have enough scientific instruments. So possibly the students can think of building the scientific instruments and building the science so that the science can be advanced. So this is what, Archana, I thought I will share in the beginning. Maybe if you have a few questions, we will take it up before I request my colleagues to take it further.
As you would suggest, I think we are all waiting even for the presentation, and we have endless questions which we would like to keep towards the end of this session because we are excited to know what both the experts they have derived in their lives. So will that be okay if we can get on with the session first before the Q&A?
That's fine. That's fine. Maybe because I may have to say take your leave. Um, I thought I have one or two points to make. There was one thing like what advice you would like to give for the students. So possibly, say there's nothing like special college or special degree to join ISRO. So our students should understand whoever is eligible, they should simply apply, and they had to make careers, and it's for everyone. So not just ISRO, they can think of say Indian science is booming. So DRDO, Department of Atomic Energy, Department of Biotechnology, Indian Council of Agricultural Research. So anything that related to science and technology, they can opt and then make a career. So ICRB is the exam through which written test through which they can join ISRO. It is more or less like GATE equivalent, and the interview questions basically students the scientific way of learning things is possibly to know what are the limitations of the existing theory. Like Ohm's law may not be applicable in under all conditions. Newton's laws are limited to non-relativistic velocities. So where which theory will fail? So these are the type of things that students, if they can learn, they can crack the interview well. So it is possible for all of us, all of you. So we should make the best use of things. And then Indian space program is having very exciting programs ahead. The Aditya L1, Gaganyaan, and we have been told that we have to go to Mars, again Venus, the moon. We'll have space station. We need scientific instruments, and the instruments will have to come from the students and the academic institutions. It's all very exciting time and decades ahead. We should make the best use of this. Archana, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. One request. I think there are many questions which have come from students and very intelligent questions. I am like taken aback that at this age in their life, they are thinking so much. So we have budding scientists already. But, sir, one question which is slightly disconnected, but students would love to know about it, and it is exciting topic for all of us. Aliens, are they really there or it's just a myth? Would you like
Right.
to talk something about it?
Yes, this is very interesting and very important question also. So the answer, scientific answer for the question whether aliens exist is that maybe. So it's neither a reality because we are to see the second place. It's not a myth because the chances are there. The statisticians, those who mean theoreticians, they consider the Milky Way like galaxies, Sun like star, Earth like planet, and they estimate at least 50,000 places the life should exist. It's not humans, life. So that's why there is a huge program going on, SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. So it doesn't mean we are yet to find a place, second place where life is existing. That doesn't mean they are not there. So there are, in 1977 itself, Voyager 1 and 2 have carried the images of humans, the cattle, and 45 different languages. Children have told, hello, this is a message from the earth. So this is the sentence that has been told. The idea is, the hope is it will reach one day where the say intelligence is existing. They'll try to understand and they'll try to contact us. So possibly it will keep continuing. There are three possibilities. One is they are there, but they must be still in say Stone Age. The second possibility is they have just received it. They will receive it, understand, and send it back. Try to reply us, but it will take equal amount of time the way it has traveled. Then the third possibility is they may be out of 50,000 places. They may be knowing thousands of places. They may ignore, thinking that array just one more thing. So that possibility is less because we believe nature, the same nature has built them also, and all of us by nature we would like to interact with people. So possibly they will, that possibility is less. But why I added that sentence that this question is important for all of us is that at least then we, the people on this world, 810 crore people, will get united because we will have somebody, common person whom we can look up to. So beyond our national boundaries or whatever things that are trying to divide us, we all will get united. So at least for this reason, students, the listeners should make effort to see that we find the aliens at the earliest. So that is the answer actually.
So we would have continued with the Q&A later, but I still want to ask you one question before you leave us, and we might not get your time later on. So one last question is, can India actually build a colony on the moon? Do you think that day is possible, and how soon?
How, can India build a colony on the moon? The answer is technically yes. Uh, if we ask today, will it be possible? Maybe it will take some time. So the colonization of moon and Mars has gained importance because people are telling Earth can only serve as a cradle. It cannot be a home. So we may have to move out. So there are other reasons also. After 170 crores of years, it is estimated that the Earth will become inhabitable. Suppose something comes and hits, so where do we go? At least to ensure that our species will continue, we may have to go to Mars and Moon. So they are the nearest possible avenues. But then to go and settle there, we need technology, definitely. But the question is, can India go today? That may not be a possibility. It is true for other space nations also, in spacefaring nations as well as agencies. But one day, yes, it should be a possibility. For humankind, it should be a possibility. And there are contemplations that okay, within a decade, we may be able to go there and then draw Rangoli on moon, things like that. And there's a beautiful saying that if not my daughter, her daughter should stand on the moon with her child in her arms, then showing the earth to the child, telling that, oh, mera maike hai, wo main udhar se aayi hu. So maybe it can happen anytime soon. So the answer is all spacefaring nations are building the technologies. Can India also build? Yes, India can definitely build. The time should come at the earliest. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you so much for showing us some beautiful dreams. We all have these dreams, and you people at ISRO are making our dreams come true. Thank you so much for your time. And this was a wonderful session. I felt as if I'm back to school learning so much from you, and so are the students who've joined us live. Thank you for your time. I know that you have to take a leave because you have your flight, and safe flight to you, sir. I would like to now invite in the session Shri Shrikant M, Mission Director, Chandrayaan 3 and Aditya L1. Along with that, Dr. Venkat Raghavan. Uh, he is the Deputy Project Director, Chandrayaan 3 Thermal Systems. So, whichever order, the mic is all yours, the stage is all yours. Shrikant ji, Venkat ji.
Yeah, good morning, Archana, and good morning to all my friends who are assembled here through online and who are eager to listen to us actually. Because see, we work day and night, this is one kind of opportunity for us also to interact with the public, especially students. So we have a presentation on lunar mission, especially Chandrayaan 3. It is split into two parts. I'll be covering the first part, which is very much general in nature, like challenges in lunar landing. And after my presentation, Mr. Srikanth will take all of you through the details of Chandrayaan 3 mission and the like how we landed and way forward. So let me start with my presentation. Am I audible, Archana? Am I clear?
You're audible for me, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I've
Yeah.
muted myself.
Okay. Okay. Shall we move to the next slide? Before going to the challenges in landing on moon, first let us refresh some details about Earth and moon. Because as all of us know, Earth has a gravitational constant of 9.81 meter per second squared, while that of moon is almost 1/6. So if a person weighs 100 kg here, he or she will weigh only 16 kgs on moon's surface. And the mean diameter of the moon Earth is around 12,700 kilometers, while that of the moon is almost 3/11 less. So you can see the right side top, the relative scaled image of Earth and Moon, how the relative sizes are there. And coming to the mass of Earth, it's almost 5.9 into 10 raised to the 24 kgs mass of the Earth, and Moon is almost 80 times lighter as compared to Earth. And rotation period, so we all know that Earth revolves around its axis every 24 hours, but for Moon it is 28 days. And the orbital period is Earth takes around 365 days to orbit around Sun, but Moon takes only 28 days to orbit around Earth. So because of this special characteristics, we have Moon Earth tidal lock. Because see, we know that we can see only from Earth's surface, we can see only one portion of the moon. We cannot see the dark side. So I just want to play that animation right bottom, which shows you can just see. Yeah, can you run that? See, we can see that moon is white and Earth is bluish. And just to show that only one surface, only we can see from Earth, I have made two eyes and a smiley face. So you see Earth and moon are tidally locked, because of which we can see only one surface, only brighter side of the moon only we can see always. And next, coming to the escape velocity, see on Earth's surface, if any object is given a speed of 11.2 kilometer per second, it will leave the sphere of Earth's influence. It can go beyond the Earth's influence. And while Moon, it is very less, it's around 2.38 kilometers per second. So anything, any object which comes closer to Moon and which has a velocity more than 2.38 kilometers per second, it will just leave the Moon's influence. If it is less than that, it will be captured by Moon. This is the basic thing which we utilize to go to the Moon's orbit and to be captured by Moon. And the surface temperature on Earth is its average is around 14 to 15 degrees Celsius, but Moon has a very wider temperatures in near lunar polar regions or during lunar nights. We see as low as 100 Kelvin, that is minus 173 degrees Celsius. And while in the equator on the sunny day, we see close to 400 Kelvin, it's almost 120, 130 degrees Celsius. So, and atmosphere, we all know we have one atmospheric pressure which is 10 raised to 5 pascals, but in moon atmosphere is not there. It is a hard vacuum. It's only 10 raised to minus 7 pascals. And because of the rotation period, revolution around its own axis, see, we have one lunar day is equal to 28 Earth days. In that, 14 Earth days are daytime and 14 Earth days are night time. That is why Chandrayaan 3 mission, you would have heard our mission life was 14 Earth days. That means only when sun was being illuminated on the landing site, the Chandrayaan 3 operated and it has completed all its mission goals. And when it entered into lunar night, because of the harsh temperature which goes to almost close to 100 Kelvin, the electronics could not survive. And the bottom middle, you can see the image. This is actually a image taken by a flyby satellite. The dark side of the moon also you can see. It is taken from the other direction of the Earth, so that you can see the moon in the background of Earth, which is darker side, which we have not seen from Earth in our naked eyes. Can you move to the next slide, please? Yeah, now let us concentrate on challenges in reaching moon and landing on lunar surface. Before that, we have multiple phases to reach moon. Broadly can be classified into launch phase, which is from launch till the first orbit, and then earthbound phase, which is multiple orbits around Earth. And then third is translunar injection. So velocity will be imparted to the spacecraft such that its apogee, that means in the elliptical orbit, the farthest distance will be very close to the distance between Earth and Moon. That's around 3.8 to 4 lakh kilometer. So that once that velocity is imparted, it will that is called translunar injection. It will, the object or satellite will move towards Moon. And next is, once it is in the vicinity of the Moon, we have lunar orbit insertion. LOI, as I already said, since its velocity, its escape velocity is very less, we have to reduce the velocity. We have to do retrofiring so that the velocity of the satellite is reduced so that it will be captured by Moon. And once it is captured by Moon, we have multiple lunar bound phases, and which will have a higher elliptical orbit in the beginning, and then we reduce the velocities multiple times so that it comes very close to the moon's surface, and finally we can achieve, say, around 100 by 100 or 200 by 200 kilometer circular orbits. Next, please. So now we'll see in each phase what are all the major challenges we face, because during launch phase, major challenge is launcher capabilities. We will make satellites, but we have a constraint. We cannot simply make a satellite, say some 25 tons. I want to take everything to moon. You make a very huge satellite is not possible, because it depends on the launcher capability we have. See, the Bahubali, what we call the GSLV Mark III or LVM3, that has got a capability to carry the spacecraft up to 4 tons, which can place it in geo transfer orbit. So we have a constraint that our lunar mission or any interplanetary mission, the weight of the spacecraft is within the capability of our launch vehicle. Next is launch window. See, I will show the animation in the subsequent slides. Especially lunar missions or any interplanetary mission, simply we cannot launch. See, we have to launch, we have to time the launch such that when exactly we go near to the lunar surface, the moon's vicinity, so we have to have a match so that we should capture the moon. Simply if I launch, moon may be somewhere and the satellite may be somewhere. The other thing is critical for launch windows debris. We have lots of multiple debris in space because of the launches happened since 1960s onwards. So we have to avoid all these debris. So we have a very small window, so that within that window in a day we can launch. If you miss that, we have to go to the next day only. So that is how that is a very critical parameter for any launch. And third is the precise injection of spacecraft. Because see, to reach, we will be carrying some fuel in the spacecraft, because once launch vehicle inserts the spacecraft into the orbit, into the space. So we will have a designed orbit so that all maneuvers. Suppose the injection is not very precise, so we have to carry multiple maneuvers so that we lose fuel. So injecting the spacecraft without any disturbance is also a very critical thing. And the last is collision-free separation from launcher. Can you click that animation? It shows the onboard camera, the video from the launch vehicle for Chandrayaan-3 spacecraft. You can see how smoothly that GSLV Mark III or LVM-3 M4 has injected the spacecraft into space, into the orbit. It was very smooth and without much disturbance, it has placed the spacecraft, because of which we could save a lot of fuel to reach moon. Whatever we have designed and extra fuel we have taken, the situation was such that we need not have to use the extra fuel within the budgeted fuel. We could take the spacecraft Chandrayaan-3 to the moon's orbit. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. So once spacecraft is in the orbit, then we have a very challenging task of stabilizing the spacecraft, because there will be a lot of disturbances, lot of maneuvering are required. We have to ensure that spacecraft is very stable. So we have to carry out all initial operations. So then we have earthbound and translunar injection phase, where precise timing and maneuvers are required, because so you can see the animation on the bottom right. You can see moon is represented by a green dot and earth is blue dot, and yellow, the pink color is a spacecraft trajectory actually. So when the spacecraft is launched, you can see moon will be somewhere else in the its own orbit, but we have to time the maneuver such that when we reach the moon's orbit, the moon also has to come to that zone so that it can be captured by moon's gravity. So the timings and maneuvers are very important. That is one of the major challenges which Srikanth and his team has carried out, and he will be explaining in detail in his presentation. Next is trajectory accuracy. See, actually Earth and Moon, if you see universe or space, Earth and Moon are like sand particles. So can you imagine that we have to travel, the satellite has to travel almost 4 lakh kilometers, and exactly it has to reach near the moon's vicinity, because if it is slightly away also, it will not be captured by moon, and at the same time it should not go and hit directly, it should not land directly on moon's surface with hard hitting. So the timing and trajectory are so precise, they're required to be so precise, and even velocity also, whatever the satellite has to get also to be controlled very precisely. And the other major challenge is disturbances from Earth and Moon gravity. See, the Earth and Moon also, the gravitation field, they influence the trajectory of the satellite. So all those disturbances need to be cancelled, and we have to ensure. And the other thing is solar radiation pressure. In spite of all these disturbances, spacecraft has to be very precise in the orbit at the same. Here it is like X, Y, Z, and T time. All 4 coordinates need to be very precise. Then only we can reach any interplanetary object. And apart from this, when we are going beyond the Earth's sphere, we have a radiation Van Allen belts, which are there between 640 kilometers to 58,000 kilometers, which are having highly charged energetic particles. And all our electronics, we have to shield such that these charged particles, they do not disturb the electronics, and they do not cause any harm to the electronics. So till we cross that multiple times in the earthbound phases, we'll be crossing over the Van Allen belt. We have to ensure that proper care is taken in the design. Next, please. Then once we are in the near the vicinity of the moon, lunar orbit insertion also is very important, because we have to we have to reduce the velocity, we have to do retro firing of the engines so that it is properly captured by moon's gravity, and it is in the required elliptical orbit. and that is also very challenging. That requires a very precise mathematical calculation, modeling, and also implementation of the firing parameters. Then once we are there in the moon's sphere, see, we know that it's almost 3.8 to 4 lakh kilometers away from Earth. So we have to ensure that all our deep space antennas, they should be able to send the command to satellite and also receive the data from the satellite. So very few such deep space network antennas are there on Earth. So it is like a collaboration. We have to collaborate with other space agencies like ESA, NASA, and we have to get the services from their antenna also, and we have to keep commanding and receiving the telemetry from the satellite. Next slide. Then once we are in the lunar orbit, as I told, we'll be in the highly elliptical orbit around moon, and then with the retro firing, with every orbit, we'll be coming closer to the moon, and finally we come to the circular orbit around 100 kilometers. At that time, orbital velocity will be approximately around 1.6 kilometers per second. It is like it is around 5,800 kilometers per hour. So it is like you are driving a vehicle on Earth and you can reach Kanyakumari to Kashmir within 30 minutes. That is the kind of speed I am talking about. So is on landing, you cannot simply have a landing with that kind of velocity, because it will be like impact will be so huge that the lander will be shattered into pieces. So we have to kill the velocity and we have to bring it to near zero. And here we don't have atmospheric like in Earth, or like in Mars. We don't have atmosphere in Moon. So we have to do aerobraking using propulsion system only. So there the engines we had in engines which can give 800 from 5,800 kilometers per hour to almost 0 kilometer per hour. That was the major challenge for any landing mission. Next, please. And the other challenge is braking. Anyhow, the trajectory for landing, what we call the last few minutes of terror, Srikanth will explain more in detail for Chandrayaan 3. But determining the exact orbit and accurate knowledge of the initial position and velocity, it is very, very important because we should know how far we are from the satellite is from the landing site in horizontal and vertical direction, and with what velocity we have to go, and we can land on the spot, landing spot. That is also very precise, and since this happens within 15 to 20 minutes, we don't have time to discuss on ground and issue commands and all. Everything should be autonomous, and we should have a onboard intelligence built so that any real-time situation happens, like an anomaly happens, or there is a deviation in the from the planned trajectory or path. So the onboard intelligence should take care, and it should correct itself within that 15 to 20 minutes, and it should safely and softly land the spacecraft onto the surface. So for that, we have multiple sensors and navigation guidance control algorithm in the spacecraft, and also actuators, which all of them have to work in unison. And also we have multiple sensors, all of them, they have to be augmenting each other through absolute measurements. Unless all these things work in unison, the perfect landing, safe landing is very, very, very difficult. Next, please. So for sensors, we have multiple sensors like vision-based sensors. We have laser-based sensors, which can not only used for landing. Even we have to ensure that there are no hazards in the landing spot. If any hazards are there, or any slope is more than the designed slope, the local slope on the lunar surface, we have to avoid them. We have to detect and avoid them, and then we have to make a new path, and the spacecraft has to go and land. And even for onboard, to give this actual values or the parameters, we have gyros, accelerometers, altimeters, velocimeters, and position sensors also will be there in the spacecraft, which will help in actually the spacecraft movement and proper landing. And the actuator in Chandrayaan or lunar missions will be only liquid engines and attitude control thrusters. But if it is like any atmosphere is there in any interplanet or planetary objects, we can make use of parachutes and all, which is not possible in lunar landing. Next, please. And the final is once now we are ready for touchdown, but see, I told we have to kill the velocity from 1.6 kilometer per second to near zero. But achieving exact zero is very, very difficult. So there will be some velocity which will be, we have to design the landing spacecraft so that it should be able to take that impact load from that velocity. So the Chandrayaan 2 and Chandrayaan 3 were designed to take the impact for about 7 to 10 kilometers per hour of the final velocity in both horizontal and vertical directions. So we should have lots of energy absorption features in the lander so that it will absorb the energy and in both vertical and horizontal directions, and the touchdown should be stable and so that the entire lander is in a single piece and without any anomaly, so that all the electronics and the scientific instruments work without any issue after landing. So the other major thing is lunar dust, because see, it is called fluff actually. On lunar surface we have a very fine dust which the literature says around 2 to 3 centimeters thickness this dust will be spread on the lunar surface. So this dust can enter the spacecraft electronics, or it can block the sensors, especially which are in the visual range, or it can enter the engines. So we have to ensure that this dust is avoided during landing. So the design is such that the dust moves away from the lander when it is being landed, so that there is no collection of dust on the solar panels or any other sensors. Can you click the animation, please? And you can see in the animation how lander leg for Chandrayaan 3 is designed to absorb the energy. Actually, it has got a shock absorber kind of thing which absorbs the energy in both directions, horizontal and vertical directions. And you can also see the dust, how it rises because of the plumes emanating from the engines, and how it spreads. So this is also a very precise design is required to ensure that the dust is not troubling the space lander after landing, and also energy is properly absorbed. So with these challenges, I will hand over the presentation to Srikanth so that he will take you to the precise design and realization of Chandrayaan 3, how we have done it, and what is the way forward. Srikanth, please.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, sir, Raghavendra sir. Next slide, please. Yeah. Good morning, all. I will be taking all of you through the glimpses and the journey of Chandrayaan 3 and its activities post touchdown by the rover. Next slide, please. Before I take the journey of Chandrayaan 3, I like to bring out the importance or what is the complexity in landing missions. If you see all the earlier agencies, space-faring agencies, before they had a successful landing, you can had many unsuccessful attempts. Like USA had 3, and Russia that had 11 unsuccessful attempts, and India had 1. So it shows the numbers itself speaks that the complexity of landing missions over the lunar surface, and we had been successful in the second attempt near the southern pole region, and we also had other contaminations before our Chandrayaan landing recently. From Beersheba is one satellite from Israel, and Hagatu from Japan, and Luna 25 from Russia. All these 3 missions also had a very unfortunate thing that they couldn't do proper landing. They had some issues. So it shows that really the business of landing or the technical intricacies of landing on the landing missions are very complex and it's not so simple. Next slide, please. So our mission objective for the Chandrayaan 3 was to raise a lander and a rover which is capable lander of soft landing. A rover should be able to be deployed from the lander and it should be able to move on the moon surface and collect the science experimental data. So this was our mission objective for which we have defined our the whole satellite of Chandrayaan 3. Next slide. So in this I'm sure what we are trying to show is what are the different phases from where it starts and after landing, what are things. If you see the our composite module was ready on 23rd June, and we had a launch on 14th July. And there are different phases as the previous slide my friend Raghavendra sir has already covered with respect to the launch phase. One is launcher phase, and earthbound phase, translunar injection LY, and moonbound phase. So actually, our we are having LVM Mark III, which is capable of taking 4 ton. So because of our satellite mass and availability of the launch vehicle, what we could do is our launch vehicle has injected the satellite into one particular orbit of a GTO around 200 by 36,000 you can take. And after that, using the satellite fuel, we carried out a series of burns around the earth so that the apogee rises. And once we are as discussed earlier, the opportunity when the satellite is intersecting the moon's orbital plane, the point is that moon should be there at that point, otherwise satellite can escape, or it can moon, it should not crash into the moon. So for that, what happens is we need to do a proper precise orbit determination, planning and execution of the orbital maneuvers using the liquid engines which we have on the our propulsion module. So that was done, and after the trans at the TLI, we had LY, where again after the lunar orbit insertion, once the satellite is captured around the moon's sphere of influence, we had actually our requirement was to get into an orbit of around 150 by 150 around the moon. So we had to reduce the orbital size. So we had again carried out a series of burns using the again the LAM engine, the propulsion module. And once we have reached our orbit of 150 by 150, the most important activity was to separate the propulsion module from the lander module. So propulsion module is a carrier. It has carried the lander module inside which rover was sitting. So once lander module gets separated from the our propulsion module, lander module on its own has to be around the moon, orbiting around the moon. And before the actual landing is initiated, the descent phase initiated, we need to carry out most important activity on the lander was to assess the systems. Because till now, when our propulsion module was doing the job, now lander module system should be assessed, their health should be assessed, and engines, whether what we are going to use for descent purpose are in the correct functioning or not, and also see that what are thrust required, whether they are giving under different throttling regimes, all those things or not. All these things should be assessed. And our we had a image-based sensors and also our national navigation system. All these assessments was carried out in that 66 days before the actual descent was initiated on our August 23rd, for which is around that is what around 20 minutes was our landing time. So this was the whole journey what we carried out in that period for Chandrayaan 3. Next slide, please. So Chandrayaan 3 configuration, actually our Chandrayaan 3 configuration majorly was derived from Chandrayaan 2, which was already flown, and we had a slight mishap only at the last phase of last leg of the landing. So our heritage was taken as Chandrayaan 2, and based on the in-orbit experience of Chandrayaan 2 and what are as we had only one objective to have successful landing, we had done a lot of simulations and try to incorporate new sensors also and enhance sensor specification, validate the specification of sensors which are going to be used for descent phase. All those things was carried out, and also a lot of systems were tested to the extreme. Like stress tests were carried out in digital simulation, and also our sensors were also qualified using our cold test, and the engines and the sensor performance under the engines firing condition also was assessed. So we have carried a host number of tests, which I'll cover in the next slides. So we have built a a lot of robustness into the lander, and also validated all our guidance, navigation algorithms, everything in the part of our own test. And also before the actual landing, as I explained you, that 6 days we validated the whole systems which are going to participate for landing was carried out, so that we have a soft and safe landing for the lander module. Next slide. So when coming to the robustness, as I told you, improvement of sensors, additional one sensor we incorporated for velocity measurement, and improvement in the propulsion system, better slew rate control we introduced, multiple mission paths to handle the contingencies, and improvements in the guidance and controls was carried out, enhanced touchdown velocity limits for soft landing, and these software improvements were done, increased landing area. Where earlier Chandrayaan 2 had only 500 by 500 as landing site region. Now in Chandrayaan 3 it has been as 4 by 2.4 kilometers. So we enhanced the size of the landing region, and full level redundancies to take care of any hardware failures or at the system level was brought in. This is how the whole system robustness was built in. And to substantiate this robustness, we carried out a host number of tests, like I explained you, the simulations in the various platforms, our 6DOF, oil, SILS, and also interior cold tests were carried out for evaluation of sensors. Hot tests we carried out for evaluation of sensors and under the actuators performing land rock test and orbiter. So all these things we have done enough in the last 4 years before the actual Chandrayaan 3 launch. Our whole team, ISRO team, has worked for this, and we ensure that we under no condition will have a failure. We have built all the paths, all the simulations were carried out thoroughly, not leaving any stone unturned, or to see that we don't have any surprise at the last moment. A lot of effort was put in by our team. Next slide, please. So coming to this, what I was telling, this is the landing site analysis which was carried out. Actually, see what happens is the landing site, when you say moon, anywhere we can land, but our region, why we selected landing site near the southern pole region was because a lot of science interest is there also, and this we wanted to explore the southern region because of the science interest which was already there from a long time, and we have gone to the near the polar region around 69 degrees south latitude, longitude was 30 degrees east. So this is how the Chandrayaan 3 landing site was selected. Before selecting this, we had done a lot of images carried out from using the acquired from Chandrayaan 2 orbiter. We had a high resolution camera on Chandrayaan 2, which has acquired a lot of images, and we analyzed before the during our initial discussions, our mission configuration was designed when it was being arrived at. We have considered many contenders, many sites were selected based on the site boulder and crater density, the slope of the terrain, how it is, all those things were considered, and based on the index weightage for each of these parameter, which was the best was selected, and this was the site region selected for our landing for Chandrayaan 3. This is slightly around 47 kilometers up with respect to Chandrayaan 2 when compared to the landing site. Next slide, please. So as I explained, this is the configuration of the whole satellite. We had propulsion module, then lander module, and rover. And this was we had a scientific payloads on the lander also. 3 payloads were there. Rover we had 2 payloads. Propulsion module had 1 payload. So to meet the mission objective of landing and roving the moon surface, all this satellite configuration was arrived at. So this is how the whole system was built in, and we also carried out science experiments post landing also. So this is the system configuration. Next slide, please. Coming to the trajectory, descent trajectory. Actually, here the whole descent trajectory from 30 kilometers onwards, when we are starting the descent trajectory, our spacecraft altitude from the above moon surface was around 30 kilometers, and the touchdown when it should happen. So we have split the whole trajectory into majorly 4 paths. One is rough braking phase, where the most of the velocity was killed, and that from 30 to around 7.4 kilometers, the altitude has come down. And in this phase, we use basically the inertial navigation system to have our attitude and velocity information propagation. Then we had an actual phase where sensors updates for the altimeter was brought in, and which was around 10 seconds. Then in the actual phase, after getting the sensor updates from the height information, our navigation has got the height information from the sensors and was corrected. After that, we had a fine braking phase where we have trimmed the velocity to the required velocity at the start of terminal phase, which is like vertical descent from 800 meters to zero touchdown. So terminal descent phase was defined. And in terminal descent phase also, we had in fine braking phase a velocity meter update. LDV, laser Doppler velocity meter was there. Also, we had a second sensor like the land horizontal velocity camera, which was working on a based on imaging principle to derive the velocities. So we had already a redundancy in the velocity determination. Also, two sensors were built in. And apart from that, for height determination, we had two altimeters. One was Lhasa and Kara. So we always had a sensor tendency to take care of or relieve the failure of the main systems. So when the satellite reached around 18 meters, it started vertical descent at the terminal descent phase. And around 150 meters, we have built in something called hazard avoidance camera, which will take the image of the region where it is seeing, and the image is compared with the reference image loaded already on board, and it will isolate the points. If there is a hazard at the point where it is going to vertically descend, it can do a horizontal movement of around 100 meters approximately around the error ellipse. So this is how the design was built in. But we're very fortunate at landing where we are done. There was not safe, so it is directly we went to the from 150 to 0. So this is how the whole descent trajectory, which we call 20 minutes of terror, what we can call the whole thing with respect to the guidance, navigation, sensors. This autonomous. We cannot do any intervention once the autonomous landing sequence is initiated. This all has to go autonomously with respect to the control loop, and the control system has to operate, sensors has to operate, engines have to be throttled. Lot of complexities has been there. This what for this purpose, what the requirements were there was pre-evaluated in that 6 days. So we have done a successful landing the prime landing site. But in case we were not able to do landing at prime landing site, we also had a backup plan, which was around 3 days from the landing post prime landing site, that 69 degrees south only, but slightly westward longitude. So we had also built plan B in case of prime landing site we are not successful landing. So we had a for every thing we had a plan A, plan B, sensors wise redundancy, the design diversification, testing, evaluation, everything was carried out before we have initiated the descent. Thank you. Next slide, please. So this is the payload scenario. I have covered it. Next slide. So this is okay. Now that was the phase of the what I explained was the phase for the descending. Now post descent landing, we had a rover inside the lander. For that also totally a sequence, automated sequence you can call for the rover to roll down was put in place in case of ground commanding not possible and all. So we had you can see the series of things. One is a secondary ramp deployment, then primary ramp deployment. Then you can see on say serial number 4, rover was standing on the ramp and solar panel deployment, and rover hold down, release, roll down, and rover touching the moon surface. So this is a series of activities which also was built in with an autonomous sequencer, so that it happens autonomously without any ground intervention. Also was built in, but the thing is, every phase of this we can see a host number of new technologies, and everything was we had totally new experiences. We had to face a totally technologically challenging points every point of the time. So our team has done extremely good job in meeting all these things. And wherever the rover was touching down, that region before the rover touches down, we have imaged from using the lander camera on the lander. So we can see in our next images, we can see how there was a crater, how rover has rolled over that crater and went ahead. All these things are very interesting. Next slide, please. So this is how the rover, when I say once rover is on the moon surface, the other important point is rover path planning, because rover has to row on the moon surface. It's like because wherever rover has to move, wherever rover is standing, if it has to go to a new point from there, we should have a path. For that purpose, we had a cameras on the rover, which are called navigation cameras, and which has taken the image of the region where rover is standing. In front of that region was taken, and avoiding the different craters, boulders. Rover has to move from the point where it's standing to the destination point, and all these things also were carried out in a semi-autonomous way. So rover path planning was done from ground, and also we operated the science rover payloads collecting the science data at different points. So totally the whole rover path planning is also a new system which involved different teams across ISRO centers to operate these things. So this also was totally a new challenging experience for all of us. Next slide. So if we can see using the what our previous software I told you about, that we were able to move around 100 meters in 11 days over the moon surface. You can see this is the path how the rover has moved over the moon surface, which are showing as dotted lines. So this is and we should, when rover is moving also, we should always ensure that the rover panel is pointing towards sun for power generation, and rover whenever is standing, after some time there should not be a shadow, so that from the local origins, so the power generation has to be ensured. And rover wherever standing, the slope should not be very high, so that rover should not roll down back. So all this, and the communication between lander and rover should be ensured. So many things has to be tested, verified and checked before the rover moves from one point to another point. And wherever rover standing also to be ensured that is safe for the long durations when rover is standing. All these aspects were considered, and the precise meticulous planning of rover mobility also was planned on the moon surface. The next slide. So this what I covered. The lander special test is actually that was the in-orbit operations, but I want to put few slides about the lander special test, that is integrated cold test, which was carried out in our mine in the mine in Chitradurga, to validate all our sensors under different tests and flight profiles using helicopter. Then we had integrated hot test at Shar, where the lander module was holded with a crane, and we have tested all our guidance navigation sensors in the lab engine firing condition. And launch and drop test was carried out with on different slopes with different velocity touchdown velocities. All these things were carried out on ground before the actual launch. Next slide. So we can see there are the three sets of hardwares were made. One was for the flight modules were made, where a propulsion module, land module, and rover you can see on the left hand side, and an integrated image at the center. Then special test modules were different. So we had to develop lots of hardwares, test them on ground, and flight modules were different. Ground test modules were different. So this like a huge activity was taken up. We have done successfully all these things. Next slide. So if you see this is the image, actual images. On the left side, you see lander standing on the moon surface. This image was taken by the rover as a selfie of the lander. And on the right side, you see when rover was rolling down, you can see, as I told, there was a crater there in front of rover. Actually, rover has rolled down and passed the crater, and it has gone ahead. So like this, actually every stage of Chandrayaan 3, whether it was in orbit or post landing, lot of challenges were faced, and a lot of planning, meticulous planning, execution of operations were carried done by all our team. I say that it is a huge effort, and we had teams have done extremely good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Shrikant M, Mission Director Chandrayaan 3 and Aditya L1. We are all ready to assimilate more, and I would also like to thank Dr. Venkat Raghavendra, Deputy Project Director, Chandrayaan 3 Thermal Systems. And those who have just joined in a little later, just introducing myself yet again. I'm RJ Archana Jani from MyFM. I host the morning show in Ahmedabad. And this is a super special session for our Rangrez participants. I'm pleased to again announce the kind of numbers that we have. We have around 3 lakh children who have participated across 7 states and 300 schools. And so I must say, Chote Muh Badi Baat, lovely presentation. Chandrayaan 3 landed almost like an aircraft landing on the runway. And the lander that perfectly landed with a smooth landing, that too before the world in the South Pole. That's our USP. And Bharat is really, really proud of you, how cost effectively you were able to do this. India is a rich land, and where we have landed on the moon, that is rich too. So the elements that are found there, how can we make the most of it? How can our country be richer? We would love to learn all of this from you. I would also like to tell here, and focus on this one point, which is all the questions that we are going to ask now have come from not one but 7 states: Rajasthan, Gujarat, Chhattisgarh, MP, Punjab, Haryana, and Maharashtra. So many questions that came in from 30 cities, wherever we have MyFM, which is present in 30 cities. And they've all sent the questions to the radio stations. So, more or less similar questions we have considered where people were interested or students were interested in knowing one particular thing. So, moving on to the most interesting part of this session, which is the Q&A. Post the presentation, I hope that people are going to be lined in for their questions to be taken up. So, the first question that I would like to ask to of you, Venkatji and Shikanji: the lander and the rover, they do the experiments and analysis, but how do we on Earth get this information?
Sir, I'll take this question. Actually, see, when the science payloads are operated on the lander and rover, we have onboard called something called solid state recorder, which will be acquiring all this data from the respective payloads, and it is recorded in their memory, and it is downloaded via RF chain to the ground. So what happens is, our communication wise, if you see, rover can communicate with lander alone. So lander water telemetry, you can call health of the health data, as well as the lander rover payloads data, whatever is required, that all was transmitted through RF chain to lander, and lander has recorded all this data of rover, and it was along with the lander health data as well as lander payloads put together, it was transmitted to ground from the RF chain of the lander. This is how the full data what was acquired on board was downloaded to received on ground.
Right, sir. The next question we'll move on to: what is the course that one should take up to get a job as an astronaut? I know that we partially covered this question earlier, but still there are many children who would love to hear the answer to this. What is the course?
Yeah, I'll take this question. Actually, see, the first and foremost thing is the person who wants to become an astronaut, whether he or she, they should be fit, physically and mentally fit, and they should have a technical, sound knowledge of the system. Like, suppose if it is Indian mission is Gaganyaan, how it works, what are the instruments available inside the spacecraft, like that. So for that, generally, see, even in US, Russia, or in India also, we have shortlisted few astronauts or Gaganauts for future mission. They're all from Indian Air Force. So because generally they'll be fit, and the engineers in the Indian Air Force will have sound technical knowledge. Though we impart a lot of training to them, technical training, physical training, and simulations, the microgravity simulations and all. But we have chosen from Indian Air Force for future Gaganyaan missions. But the prerequisite is they should be fit, and they should come back with healthy conditions. That is the very important thing.
Right. So the next question comes from somebody who is as naughty as I was. So the question is: being a space scientist requires a lot of dedication, hard work, and you also need to have a good report card. Your academic record needs to be good. But I'm sure that you also would have faced some distractions, maybe some games that interest you, or maybe there are students around you, your friends. So how do you manage to work with that?
Yeah, I think this question both of us can answer, because see, distraction is there in every field. It is not only science and technology. Even school students, you ask during exam times, they will have lots of distractions. And see, either you can give, give excuses, or you have to overcome. Okay. So generally, when we take up such important missions, we don't find any excuses. We have to overcome for this self motivation and focus and desire to succeed, and hard work, and the last but not the least, patriotism. These are all required so that any distractions we can overcome, and we can concentrate on the objective in which we are working. So they're all very important. Srikanth, you want to add?
Yeah, see, one message to the younger generation is, as Raghavendra sir told, for any child to succeed in life or in succeed in his career, intelligence, along with intelligence, he requires hard work, sincerity, and honesty. These are the four qualities which are required for any person. when a kid, if he grows up into an adult, if he is inculcating this type of qualities in his behavior, this will really help him in succeeding in his life as well as succeeding in his career. So that's what I want to tell. And the kids should always have one thing called curiosity. When they're learning something, they should also see why, how, they should understand why, what, how. That is one thing which everything they have to understand. Apart from that, when they learn something, they should understand the concept level and see that what are concept they're learning, to what level they can, and what fields they're applying, and what is the application for those things. That is very much required for this younger generation to learn so that they can succeed in life.
Very well answered, sir. And sir, we would like to see both of you. If you can be present on the screen, please kindly switch on your cameras. I think that suddenly it has been switched off. I will move on to the fourth question, which is more related to Chandrayaan 3. The question is, what would have happened if Chandrayaan 3 moved away from Mars? Would ISRO get information if it would have reached Jupiter or the asteroid belt? Very intelligent question.
Ravindra sir, shall I take?
Yeah, you can take.
Yeah. Madam, as we presented, there is a precise planning. It's not that we are going somewhere and then whether we'll reach there or not is not the objective when we have defined our this thing. From day when injection onwards, every stage of the planning of the orbital maneuvers, we ensure that our central body from Earth we are reaching the moon. We are seeing that the planning is happening for that moon. Only thing what can happen is when a lunar orbit insertion is happening, if there was some mistake or something we have missed it in the planning, either moon will not be there to capture the satellite, or satellite moon would have been back, satellite would have escaped. So this type of things have to be thoroughly analyzed in the planning and execution. It is not that we are planning for moon and we'll go to Mars or Jupiter. That's not the point. So for that, the design, if you want to reach Mars, the design of the satellite configuration should be totally different. The fuel required will be different, and orbit trajectory will be different. If you say similarly, example, you take Chandrayaan 3 and Aditya, there are two satellites going to two different center things. So the orbital design, the trajectory design, totally different. So our teams have put lot of effort in designing the trajectory for moon when we want to reach moon. When we are going towards sun, how are the trajectory required for sun towards reaching the L1 point for sun observation is totally different. So this is how the planning and execution is carried out. And our orbital timings team will do all this planning. We apply as objectives are defined clearly. It is nothing that we do work in orbit.
True. True, sir. So, why are Indian launching stations situated near coastal areas? Is the next question.
Okay, I'll take this question, Srikanth. See,
Yes, sir.
whenever a launch vehicle launch happens, so you know it will be carrying lots of fuel, solid and liquid fuel or cryogenic fuel. So it should not be on the landing mass. Say something happens, an anomaly happens within few seconds of the launch, it should not come and fall on the landmass where people are living. So that's why most of the spacefaring nations, they have launch stations in the coastal area, so that suppose some anomaly happens, it will the launch vehicle will be landing on the sea, actually ocean, so that it will not affect the human lives. So that is the major reason why we have launch stations on the coastal areas.
So, the next question is, can you share some key challenges or obstacles that ISRO team faced during Chandrayaan's mission planning and execution?
There are many actually. Srikanth, can you name a few and then I will take
Yeah,
up one of
yeah, yeah. First thing is the landing site selection itself. Because when we have to do landing on the moon surface, we can land anywhere. On southern side it can be there, it equator can be there, northern side anywhere there. But not only deciding the region where to land. The point was to see that wherever we land, we have lot of science interests also, science, and we are trying to get the best of our object mission. So landing site selection was most of the important. Other one was the see, we had a limitation with our launch vehicle, 4 ton only it can take. So liftoff capability was restricted. So the water, fuel, and the sensors, water configuration required in propulsion module, lander module, and rover, all these things should be a trade-off between the liftoff mass versus the fuel what we are loading for the post launch vehicle injection to carry out. And one more important point was the propulsion module cannot receivers require some subsystems, but we cannot load the same systems in propulsion module which are required. So we need to build a new thing is called sharing of the resources. Whichever was there lander module, the resource was used by propulsion module also as in the composite phase. And the RF communication, when you say RF communication in deep space, when you go interplanetary missions, we need to have sufficient link margins, and also the antennas which are going to be used for the tracking of the satellite, they should be well calibrated, and we should have sufficient link margins, and also work out a station which is also available from other side of the earth. So there is a lot of scheduling and also ground station network to be established, communication links to be established, and this, so everything was a bit very complicated things has to be there were there, and we need to plan all these things. Yes, sir.
And adding to Srikanth, see this Chandrayaan mission starting from Chandrayaan 1, Chandrayaan 2, and now Chandrayaan 3. They're all first of its kind for us because there was no heritage, no experience based on which we can design and realize the spacecraft. So there were lots of technical challenges in the realization of every subsystem actually. So because the spacecraft is it is a housing of multiple subsystems. So every subsystems had faced challenges. Coming to say thermal subsystems where I was working, after the thermovac test, because once spacecraft is assembled, we will subject the spacecraft to multiple tests, thermal tests, vacuum tests, because they have to undergo all the conditions which it undergoes in the orbit or in the microgravity conditions and all. So after the spacecraft is ready and we are subjected to the test, and suddenly we came to know that one of the a sensor which is a laser based gyro sensor, it had some issue, thermal issues. Suddenly when the box was electronics was switched on, this temperature started rising. So we were clueless how to solve this issue, because already spacecraft is assembled and launch date is almost fixed. So we had to do some salvage action quickly. Every concerned team member assembled, we discussed, and we ensure that how to come over these challenges. See, this is one example I have given. Like this, multiple examples are there where day to day we were facing challenges, and actually it was a thrill to us. Now we have become so much tuned that if any spacecraft we can realize, design and realize without any issues, we will be shocked what happened, and we will be doubting whether it will really work in the orbit. So that kind of, and it is there not only for Chandrayaan missions. Such challenges are there for all missions, not only for ISRO, even for other spacefaring nations also they face such challenges.
So little did I know of the South Pole where we were supposed to land. I think that is one region which is absolutely dark. So in itself, and so many big craters are there. So that itself was a biggest challenge. Little that we did read. So when I move to the next question, just before that, I would like to just make a mention, and also if you can correct what I'm saying. I just Googled something. ISRO has earned over 4,000 crore by launching satellites for other countries. So when people were just saying, people who did not have the knowledge, and they were saying that kitni garibi hai hamare desh mein, we need so much infrastructure, we have unemployment, why are we launching? So here is an answer to most of the people. I would also like to ask you the next question, which is connected, that how did ISRO manage to send more than 100 satellites together?
Okay, I'll take this question. Actually, it was in 2017 PSLV C-37, which carried 104 spacecrafts together in that launch vehicle, and for that time it was a kind of record actually, because before that Russian space launch vehicle had taken some 36 to 40 satellites at a time. It is not that it is not possible, because see, it is basically a proper design and proper realization. This one, if you do, it is possible, because we had out of 104 spacecrafts, 3 spacecrafts were from India only, because the heaviest of the 104 satellites were Cartosat 2 series, which was weighing 714 kgs, and apart from that we had 2 nano satellites from ISRO, INS 1 and 2, which weighed around 8 to 10 kgs. So the PSLV C-37 has put all these spacecrafts into around 500 kilometers orbit. And other than three, we had 96 spacecrafts, which are all small satellites weighing from few grams to few kgs, like 5 to 10 kgs. So 96 spacecrafts were from USA, and one from Netherlands, one from Switzerland, one from Israel, one from Kazakhstan, and one from UAE. So the major challenge was launch vehicle design. Basically, you see, every satellite will have an adapter to launch vehicle, and when the real actual orbit is achieved, the spacecraft has to be injected. So to carry 104 spacecraft and to inject every spacecraft into orbit, we should have a very precise design of the adapter system where one by one, because we cannot inject all satellites together, because each satellite will have its own orbit and its own direction towards which it has to be injected. So one by one, first PSL Cartosat 2 satellite was injected, and after few seconds, after few subsequent timings, one by one, all satellites were injected, and the injection system, the ejection system was such that there will be no disturbance because of one satellite ejection into the other satellites, or it will not go and hit the other satellites which is already injected into the orbit. So that was the design, and precise planning was carried out to do all these things.
So the next question comes from Bhavan School. What is the difference between PSLV and GSLV?
Actually, PSLV is a polar satellite launch vehicle, and GSLV is a geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle, because there are two different kinds of satellites actually. See, PSLV polar satellites means like all Earth observation satellites, imaging satellites, which are there in the low Earth orbits of the order of say 400 to 1000 kilometers altitude from the Earth's surface. So, and their mass also, the weight also will be less. They will be within 2 tons or around 1.5 to 2 tons. But geosynchronous satellites, they're all basically communication satellites. They will be weighing in 3 to 4 tons, around 2 to 4 tons, and they will be placed finally injected into the orbit of around 35,880 kilometers, so that the satellite will see only one point on Earth. Like say India, it is seeing 24/7. It will be seeing India only, because it will have 24 hours of orbiting time, which will match with the revolution period of the Earth. So there are totally two different kind of launch vehicles, and they have different types of fueling also. Like PSLV has 4 stages, 2 liquid and 2 solid stages, while GSLV has only liquid stage and cryogenic engines. So even boosters also are different. Like PSLV has strap-ons or boosters made out of solid motors, while GSLV has boosters made out of liquid engines. So there are a lot of differences.
I would like to make a mention that the scientists and the people working at ISRO are very good teachers also. And we have not decided any of these questions, but still you are flawless and you are answering them so well. Children are able to assimilate all of this, sir. So next question is that, is there any update on Mangalyaan?
Okay, Mangalyaan, whether you are referring whatever already launched the Mars orbiter mission or the upcoming mission, okay, I will tell both. See, the Mars orbiter mission or Mangalyaan 1, what people call, it was launched on 5th November 2013 actually. And it was actually designed for a mission life of only 6 months, because that is also like Chandrayaan mission. It was one of its kind, and we did not have a heritage or experience, and also so many challenges were there, which was either more or equal to the challenges faced during the realization of Chandrayaan actually. And though it was designed for 6 months mission life, we had a very good mission with that satellite, because we lost contact somewhere during April 2022. That means it has worked for more than 8 years, which really shows the way how ISRO could design based on our experiences and all. And that was really very fantastic mission for us. And the upcoming mission is a Mars landing mission. Anyhow, the studies are going on, and it is in different stages of design and realization. And people have to wait for a few more years, and because so it is not just making a satellite and launching. And as you know, it is not that easy for India to invest so much in crores on satellites and lose it because of our fault or because of under testing and all. So we should be very careful in releasing and testing the spacecraft. So that takes time actually. So things are there in place, and few more years, the Mars orbiter mission or Mars landing mission also will be in the orbit.
As we can see, so like we clear our home, the next question is,
Second, can you answer?
do I repeat the question?
No, I was thinking, anyhow, both of us can answer. I'll answer. I think Shrikant is not in
Sure.
online now. See, the space junk, it is correct. It is a very apt question because the current age, if you see, when private space industry has entered into the satellite building and launching, we only a few tens of satellites were being launched, but now it is debris. And when I was presenting, I told launch window because see, now it is becoming, the launch window is becoming very narrow, and with more such debris, it is very difficult to launch a new satellite because one or the other debris will come in the way of the launch vehicle or satellite. So now all spacefaring nations have taken a decision that they are working on that, how to reduce debris and how to bring back the debris. So it's already there, and you would have seen ISRO also has attempted Megatropics. We already brought it back after its mission life. We brought it back to Earth's surface, and it will enter. While since Earth has an atmosphere, when it is entering, it becomes into ashes, and we'll ensure that the entry is over international ocean region, so that no human lives are into endangering conditions. And the other thing is, see, we have two classes of satellite, like I said earlier, low Earth orbit and GEO, that is high Earth orbit satellites. Generally, low Earth orbit satellites will be around 600 to 800 kilometers altitude. And once mission life is over, maybe within a few decades, it will come back and it will crash into, it will enter into the Earth's atmosphere and it becomes into ashes. But whichever satellites which are there in 36,000 kilometer orbit, it takes centuries or thousands of years to come back. And because of that, what we generally do, it is part of the mission actually. Once it's when we come to know that mission life is about to be over, we will with whatever leftover fuel, we'll again fire the spacecraft and it will take it to the graveyard orbit. It is like above 40,000 kilometer orbit will take, 40 to 43,000 kilometer orbit will take, so that the subsequent communication or geo satellites, this will not become a debris and it will affect its orbit path. So this is being done by all spacefaring nations.
Right, sir. I'm sure that the junk that comes from space will also be worth millions. So the next
Yeah.
question is what it really makes us
I want to add
really
one.
proud. Sure, please.
See, one thing is, as Ravindra sir has told, one few thing is with respect to, we have also following some to avoid debris. We are also actively when the mission life of the satellite is over, we are planning like the available fuel will come to an orbit where the mission life is less than 25 years. That is one of the guideline. Or else, if the fuel is sufficient and systems are working, we can come enter the satellite to Earth's atmosphere. That like that we demonstrated our megatropic satellite, which has recently, which shot last this year, we have demonstrated the re-entry of megatropic satellite also in the atmosphere. This is how the things we are taking up at ISRO level also.
Right. A very connected question is something that I have listed over here. Somebody has asked that how much fuel is required to go to moon? They want to have their tanks full up.
That is a function of the mass. That much only simple thing we want to tell. We cannot tell immediately. That is, it's not called a general formula thing. It is a function of the mass of the spacecraft and what is the orbit we are getting into. All those things. That is how the fuel is available should be loaded and used for raising the orbit maneuvers, carrying out orbit maneuvers.
Yeah, I can give some statistics for Chandrayaan 3 actually. See, like Chandrayaan 3 had propulsion module, lander module. The propulsion module weight was around 2,150 kgs approximately, I'm telling. Out of that, around 450 kg only was dry mass. Dry mass means all instruments mass, and almost 1,700 kg was the fuel mass. Because that much kind of fuel is required, 450 versus 1,700, so that we could reach moon spending that much fuel. And the lander also requires a huge fuel because the braking or deceleration also we have to fire all the four engines, and we have to spend lots of fuel. So lander mass was around 1,750 kg, out of which dry mass was approximately 700 kgs, and the fuel mass was around 1,050 kgs. This is the kind of the order of magnitude of masses for lunar missions.
So through your presentation, you partially answered this question, but if you could focus on what is the difference in the Indian technology and Russian technology, because of which our lunar project was less expensive, but took more time than the Russian lunar project. It's a live question.
Second.
Sir, I sorry, I couldn't hear you. The question, can you repeat?
Yes. So the question is, what is the difference between the Indian technology and Russian technology, because of which our lunar project was less expensive, but took more time than that of the Russian lunar project?
See, normally the what happens is our launch vehicle of any organization decides the injection orbit, because we had our launcher capability to put into a GTO of 200 by 36,000, and Russians had a huge bigger rocket. They could put into directly into the moon's orbit. So that putting in where, it doesn't matter. The point is what design and configuration of the satellite is there, that decides our the full planning. So in our missions, we had a before itself, we know that we are getting into lower orbit. We had done a series of burns, because that takes time. Every burn, when you do one burn to another burn, there is some time period where we had to do our orbit determination, requires some sufficient ranging and Doppler data to be taken, and planning for the next turn. So always we build also one orbit extra buffer. We assume that we are not able to carry out the burn because of some issue. At least the same burn can be carried out next orbit. Like that, we build a gap between one burn to another burn. So the time required for us to reach moon's orbit has taken more. But even Russians was launched later, and they were able to almost match to our thing. That is because they had a higher launch vehicle payload capability, lift off capability. This is how our design is. We cannot compare their technology to our technology. These are totally different strategies of mission executions.
To summarize, see, India, we have time and don't have money like Russians or maybe US people. So our strategy is to take the assistance from the gravity of Earth, so that we can reach. We take time because we don't have hurry that I have to reach the moon within a week. So you take time and reach. And coming to why we are cheaper, see, here in India, manpower or human resources is cheaper, and material resource is cheaper, and Indian industries are also supporting us, and they're not charging exorbitant price like imported items and all. Because of all these things, the ISRO made satellites are cheaper compared to other spacefaring nations.
Right, so we're just left with two more questions. One is, how can we control space debris, and how does space mission get affected because of that? I'm sure you've partially answered that also, because once you land, like you were explaining during the presentation, it might get into the sensors also and corrupt the mission.
Yeah, this I think I have already answered this. What are the steps we are taking to reduce debris? Like I already said, not only ISRO, all other spacefaring nations in future, we have a strategy that once mission life is over, for all low Earth orbiting satellites, we have to bring them back to Earth's atmosphere, and whatever communication satellites will send them to graveyard orbits. Okay, this is the strategy which we have adopted to reduce the debris in future.
So, one interesting question जो हम सब जानना चाहते थे, how huge is our universe? Can we define it?
No, universe is infinite. Say it is beyond the man's capability to assess the size of universe. So maybe more and more centuries of science may be required to finally find out where is the border for our universe. So it is ever expanding and it is infinite.
And it's not very easy to express in terms of kilometers or something. It is many light years actually, many billions of light years. That's all we can tell at present.
Right, so I think we are done with most of the questions. The questions are still pouring in, but all the questions are somewhere related, and you've answered most of them. But thanks to technology, that we felt as if we were in ISRO already, connected to the greatest minds that we have from our country. And we're so lucky to get this exclusive time from you, the ISRO team. We will ever be grateful to you, and I'm sure that you've ignited young hearts and minds in the right direction. Team ISRO, thank you again. The knowledge that you've imparted, the kind of quality time that you have given to the foundation of our nation, we will be forever be indebted. And schools, thank you so much for being part of this enlightening session. I'm sure the students thoroughly enjoyed the knowledgeable session. I would like to repeat that all the participants and winners, I mean, everybody is a winner, whoever has participated, but there are going to be 12 Rangrez via MyFM. They're getting an opportunity of lifetime. That is, they'll be visiting ISRO Bangalore. एंड वी ऑल नो दैट देयर आर नो फीस इंक्लूडेड इन दिस. और आप यहाँ पर हैं इसरो से, इसलिए मैं कहना चाहूंगी, अब हमारा नारा बन चुका है, जय जवान जय किसान जय विज्ञान. थैंक्स टू इसरो. Really, really proud that we got this time with you.
Thank you, Archana, and we
Thank
also
you.
would like to thank you for connecting us to students, especially as you said, they're all young minds, and hopefully we could ignite them, their desire, and so at least a few of them could join the space industry in future. Whatever you have conducted today, it will be really meaningful, and it will achieve its goal. And we would also like to welcome the students who would like to visit ISRO here. And because see, finally we could do this generation, whatever we could do, we are doing. And we want the next generation, especially students, to be more serious and focused about space. And they have to ensure that India is none to second in the space industry in future too. Thanks a lot.
I also like to thank Archana and MyFM for giving ISRO team this opportunity to share our experiences with the younger generation of our country. And this is one of the media which we can connect, via which we can connect to the younger generation. Even in that, a few percentage of the younger generation gets ignited and join ISRO, it will be very good because they are the future of our country. So they should always. Only one message to my younger generation is they should, wherever they are there, whichever domain they work or whichever career they take, they should put always the country first, then anything else. So that's what my message. And I welcome the children who will be coming to ISRO Bangalore for visit. They can anytime consult me or Agwendra sir for any of the help required from our side. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot.